In May of this year, George Miller returned to the Mad Max series. It starred Tom Hardy as the titular character, and Charlize Theron as Imperator Furiosa. The film is easily one of the best films of the year. It's probably even one of the best action films in the past 10 years. And it's very likely going to be one of my favourite films of the year. Bit of a fanboy, you couldn't tell. Well, this week we're being graced with a Mad Max game by Just Cause creators Avalanche Studios. Hopefully it will live up to not only the awesome looking gameplay trailers, but also the video game potential that the series has always had. So, you know, I've really got my fingers crossed for this, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I really don't want this game to suck. I need this game to be good. Now, some of you might think that this is the first game based on Mad Max, and that isn't really true. There were some Mad Max games back on the 8-bit and 16-bit consoles. It turns out that the first licensed Mad Max game was released all the way back on the NES by Mindscape in 1990. Simply titled Mad Max, it was actually based more around the second entry in the series, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. So let's just get this out of the way and just have a look at it. Jesus Christ, you couldn't have given us like, I don't know, a few seconds before attacking us with that? Get used to that, by the way. It plays for the majority of the game. Well, except for the driving sections, which have no music. Let the fun train commence! Well, there we go. They've done it. Some of the worst 8-bit art I've ever seen. He doesn't have a face. The game starts with you stuck behind a blockade of enormous tyres. Given no indication of what to do, I hit both buttons and launched dynamite across the screen. Because Mad Max? It plays from a top-down perspective and sees our titular hero travelling throughout the wasteland via his interceptor and traversing caves on foot. The player is also able to purchase items from scattered shops by trading in your precious food and water supplies, which are found in the aforementioned caves. However, collecting these items is easier said than done. After all, there are bandits roaming the cave and the wasteland, and they hate your non-face. They attack you by touching you, which forces Max to let out this lovely sound. These sections are quite simple, but just look out for the holes in the floor. You only just need to so much as brush against them to fall to your death. Now, while the graphics during the wasteland segments are passable, the on-foot sections look fucking horrible. The animation on Max is okay, but the bandits, it's not so much. Now, something about not only the animation, but the sprites themselves in these segments really bugged me. Something about them just didn't really scream NES to me. Well, it turns out I was right. While collecting assets for this review, I stumbled across an Amiga title also made by Mindscape. It was called Road Raider. Doesn't that look similar? It would appear that this game was actually a bastardized port of this game, and just had the movie license slapped onto it. The worst thing is Road Raider actually looks pretty decent for an Amiga title, and just a hell of a lot more engaging than this. Now, for a licensed game, Mad Max isn't terrible, it's just very dull and forgettable. It's a bit of a boring experience, and it turns out a crappy port of a decent looking Amiga title. I can only recommend looking into this if you're a huge fan of the series. And if you're not...
just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
Unfortunately, this isn't the only Mad Max game I want to look at today. There was another one developed, again, by Mindscape. But you might not have noticed that it was a Mad Max game, you may not have realised. And there's a very good reason for this. They lost the license partway through development, and it shows. So this is Outlander for the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, released in 1993. It's not very good. So after the team logos and whatnot, we're shown the title screen, and yeah, it's not the nicest looking introduction to a game, is it? Nice use of the Mode 7, guys. It was, yeah, it was fucking marvellous. Given no backstory, no cutscene, or any explanatory text, we're thrown straight into the game where we find ourselves being chased down by bikers and other nasties. And no, I don't have the instruction manual, nor could I find it online, so we really are going in blind here. Look, we all know we're really playing as Max, and we're just trying to survive in the Australian wasteland, so let's just get on with this. You've probably noticed the pop-ups at the bottom of the screen as well as the rearview mirror at the top of the screen. Each window is actually pretty useful as it allows you to keep an eye on what's ahead of you while simultaneously what is coming up from behind you. The side windows that pop up also allow you to shoot enemies that are riding alongside you, which is admittedly pretty awesome. You do so using your sawn-off shotgun, but be warned, you need to wait for them to get close enough to you so your weapon leaves its mark. However, if you let them get too close, they can attack you with their crossbows, like that certain film series I keep banging on about. Your interceptor does come equipped with some new additions as well. Twin machine guns at the very front of the car. The ability to also acquire air-to-air missiles and nitro boosts later on is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, blowing up enemies in front of you can lead to your car getting damaged, because shrapnel obviously. It may sound simple enough, but if you're not careful, enemies will overwhelm you quite easily, leading to a lot of frustration as you struggle to multitask various things. I also never really got a good feeling of speed while playing this. Yeah, it's not the slowest of vehicles, but come on, I'm driving the fucking Interceptor. I should be fast as balls. Fast as balls. I have to talk about the sound effects. While they're better than the Mega Drive version, they're still kind of... yeah. Oddly enough, the car doesn't seem to make any sound whatsoever, leaving you with that arse-droning music. Which is probably why there's not a great sense of speed, actually. The only time you'll hear something different is when you reach one of the on-foot sections, or when you die, probably due to rolling the car intentionally. Yes, you heard me correctly, there are side-scrolling sections of the game. Here you traverse the wasteland on foot looking for supplies such as food, ammunition and more importantly, fuel. However, you have to be careful because some food can be irradiated. Luckily, later on you do acquire a Geiger counter which allows you to tell whether food is or isn't safe. In these sections you also manage to nab some of those special items I mentioned earlier, like the air-to-air missiles. You get to these levels by either reaching your destination or by running out of fuel. When you reach your destination, the game will notify you by telling you to pull over. Running out of fuel, on the other hand, is no joke, as you'll be forced to traverse the road to grab fuel while simultaneously trying to avoid the biker gangs whizzing past, fighting other villains, and hopping over road mines that have appeared out of fucking nowhere. The regular side-scrolling levels, however, are pretty damn simple. They do a decent job of mixing up gameplay, I guess, but it's nothing special. But I'd be lying if I said the music to these stages wasn't funky as hell. Look, you can pretty much walk in time with the beat. You can repeatedly punch this guy in the dick until he dies. That's a really nasty way to go. Imagine that. You've survived not just the crash of society, but the wasteland itself. You've avoided radiation, and you've carved out a nice little place for yourself, only to be punched in the dick by Mel Gibson. Actually, now I think of it, the gameplay is very reminiscent of Technocop, a game designed by Brennan Interactive, another mediocre title. Although, unlike Outlander, it does allow you to do this in the opening mission. Now, you can talk about your Mortal Kombats, but I'm legitimately shocked that this wasn't a bigger story at the time. RoboCop just shot a child in the face. Anyway, when you have all the items needed, you return to your car and continue your adventure on the road to the wasteland. And you just repeat this over and over and over and over again. The game does throw in a few new enemies later, like gyrocopters and such, but it's not really enough. The game begins to become even more of a chore to play through, and you begin to realise that it doesn't really have any new gameplay to throw at you. If the gameplay itself was better and not such a chore, then this wouldn't really be a problem. The worst thing is, this isn't even really what I'd class as a terrible game. It's just horrifically average, and somehow that just makes it worse. But the real question is, after all the grueling, monotonous gameplay, is the ending worth it? Well, let's just take a look, shall we? After defeating someone that looks like Mean Machine from 2000 AD, Mad Max comes across an old man? A scientist? His dad? Rolf Harris? Well, whatever, this happens. That ending essentially sums up the entire experience. Pointless! So, those were some Mad Max games, and they were pretty average. The game's an absolute drag to get through, with nothing that really makes it feel rewarding to play. It's incredible that a game inspired by a series that has some of the best, if not the best, car chases can be so incredibly dull and monotonous. Average can be worse than terrible, at least downright terrible games like Lord of the Rings on Super Nintendo. Fucking hate you. Those games you can just dismiss because they're so horrifically awful. But games like this, they're more frustrating in the sense that they could be so much more. Mad Max games shouldn't be drab, boring, and average. They should be fast, exciting, hard-hitting, fucking energetic as all hell. They shouldn't be boring. Here's hoping that Avalanche Studios can do the series justice. I'm really pulling for that one. Well, I'll catch you guys next time. How many times did I say Max?